It wasn't the Greek tragedy that the singer made it out to be, but the revelation of a cheating girlfriend left the budding rock icon reeling with hurt and betrayal. The story behind a proverb that became the heartbreak anthem of the 80s, written in a laundromat of all places. Story's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever called up your favorite radio station and dedicated a song to your crush back in the day, you're going to dig this channel. It's nostalgia all the time. Take a quick second right now and subscribe to this channel and click on the bell. You know, we have some amazing interviews coming out in the next few months. You're not going to want to miss them. And also, if you get a chance, take a look at our Patreon below. I'm starting to put even more content, exclusive content there. I'm actually putting parts of interviews up right after they happen and other behind-the-scenes footage. You can also help us keep this a daily channel, and we make you an honorary producer. Now stick around, because this is one of the coolest stories behind a song that I've ever heard. You're really going to appreciate it. Every rose has its thorn. It's a proverb meant to remind us that nothing is perfect. Even one of the earth's most beautiful flowers, the rose, is not without blemish. For Bret Michaels, the lead vocalist and lyricist for the band Poison, the adage was a metaphor for the contrast facing the life of a rock star and the title that he chose for a #1 pop song that he wrote back in 1987. So Bret Michaels was born in Butler, Pennsylvania. On his birth certificate, Michael is actually his middle name, but Bret claims that his parents originally intended on giving him the middle name Maverick, after the title character played by James Garner in the popular TV Western series of the same name. Bret was a 6th grader when he formed his first band. They were called Laser. They covered songs by Aerosmith and Kiss. And when he was 16, he met Ricky Rocket, and the two assembled the Spectors, enlisting bassist Bobby Dowell and lead guitarist Matt Smith a short time later. And they changed their name to Paris in 1983. Now, Paris entered the Miller High Life Rags to Riches Battle of the Bands contest, but they came in second place. They came in second place to a new wave band called the Sharks. The Sharks. Let's talk about them for just a second, because it's pretty interesting. The Sharks got a record deal for winning the contest, and for a few years it looked like they would quite literally rise from rags to riches. The Sharks won MTV's Basement competition about a year after the contest in 1985. By the largest margin in the history of that competition. That led to a 4 EP contract with Elektra Records. The first EP was titled The Black and White World, and it featured the single Only Time Will Tell. The clip for Only Time Will Tell was the second most requested video during MTV's Top 10 Countdown for 2 consecutive weeks in 1988. But it wasn't long thereafter that the Sharks' fortunes sank and the group broke up in 1992. That's a whole other story. But meanwhile, after finishing as the runner-up in the Battle of the Bands competition, Paris, with Bret Michaels, Ricky Rocket, Bobby Dowell, and Matt Smith, they decided to pack up their gear and move to California in 1984, with the hopes of busting onto LA's Sunset Strip and landing a record deal. The band camped out at the famously sleazy Tropicana Motel in Hollywood. Now, they lived just above the poverty line, and they changed their name to Poison. To survive, the guys eventually had to pool their meager resources and move into a one-room apartment in the Hollywood Hills. And they did whatever they could to make a buck at that time, including selling pencils for chump change and grabbing work as inconsequential extras in movies and TV shows. Poison certainly wasn't making any bread from their live shows at that point. Let's just say that the guys were eating a lot of top ramen back in those days, which I'm sure many bands were. Eventually, Matt Smith couldn't hack it, though, and he moved back to Pennsylvania. So the band picked up the colorful CeCe DeVille to replace him as their lead guitarist. Now, after numerous label rejections, Poison found their first recording home with Enigma, after A&R reps from the label watched their set at the Country Club in Reseda, of all places. The rose really began to bloom, if you will, in 1986 for Bret Michaels and Poison when they released their debut album, Look What the Cat Dragged In. Of course, the band scored a number 9 hit with their second single, Talk Dirty to Me. But as the Greek proverb goes, from a thorn comes a rose. The thorn began to penetrate the life of Bret Michaels when Poison played their first gig in Dallas, Texas. Now, I'm going to set up the scene for that in just a second. Before I do that, I want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I always wear. Right now, you can get over 1,100 pairs of glasses for less than the price of a double record. And when you go to Zenni.com, I tell you, you're going to be astonished at their selection. You can get 3 or 4 pairs of glasses for what just one would cost you anywhere else. And the style, the quality, they're second to none. Try it out today. Okay, so let's set up the scene at Poison's first gig in Dallas, Texas. So Bret Michaels convinced the band to play a gig at a cowboy bar in Dallas called the Ritz. The turnout was pretty deflating. Poison performed in front of less than 30 people that night. I've actually heard that only 24 people paid to get into that show. After their performance, the band walked across the street to the seedy hotel that they were staying at. And at 3 a.m, an exhausted and lonesome Bret Michaels, he thought that a phone call to his living girlfriend Tracy back home in LA would raise his spirits, cheer him up. When Tracy picked up Bret's call, though, she immediately tried to cut the conversation short. She told Bret that she was really sleepy and that they should talk in the morning. Tracy's brush off, that caught Bret off guard. And then his stomach sank when he heard a male voice whispering in the background on the other side of that call. Bret was devastated. Find out that Tracy was in fact cheating on him while he was bootstrapping on the road with his band. Afterwards, Bret and Ricky, they went down to a laundromat to wash the only shirt and pair of pants that he had with him. While he was waiting for his clothes to dry, Bret drowned his sorrows by strumming on his acoustic guitar. He started to write a song about his soul-crushing phone conversation with his girlfriend Tracy. Bret Michaels titled his Laundromat Melodrama, Every Rose Has Its Thorn. It was built around a metaphor that symbolized what he was going through with his failed relationship. He explained that having the chance to play music for a living, that was the rose, and losing his girlfriend in the process was the thorn. Every rose has its thorn. The song begins with Bret lamenting about how cold and lonely it was going to be while trying to work things out with his girl. Bret wanted to capture the moment, that exact moment in a doomed relationship where, it's on the verge of ending, but it's not officially over. There's too much distance between the former lovers to escape the inevitable. We both lie silent, still in the dead of the night. Although we both lie close together, we feel miles apart. Lie close together, we feel miles apart inside. Bret expressed the misery of a jilted lover in his third verse. My favorite. I love his voice on this. When he says, "And now I hear you found somebody new, and that I never meant that much to you." To hear that tears me up inside, and to see you cuts me like a knife. Just poetry. When Bret finished writing the lyrics for Every Rose Has Its Thorn and pulled his clothes out of the dryer, it wasn't like he savored the moment, thinking that he just composed one of the biggest power ballads of the 80s. Actually, on the contrary. He had no idea that the song would connect with the fans. Back at the laundromat, watching his clothes spin around in that dryer, he didn't care. It wasn't a Greek tragedy, but Bret was one heartbroken dude. The words in Every Rose Has Its Thorn came directly from his heart. He wrote it and he sang it exactly the way he felt, just heart-wrenching. Tracy Lewis, later Tracy Lewis Crosby, she was an exotic dancer when she and Bret Michaels were a couple. Despite her occupation, Bret said that he never thought that she would ever be unfaithful to him. Now, before you go feeling sorry for Bret, keep in mind, not only does Every Rose Has Its Thorn, there's also two sides to every story. Now, Tracy insisted that it was Bret who was cheating on her, and it was his constant philandering that led her to the arms of another man. and thus began the playing of the blame game between Brett and Tracy. I'm no therapist, but I bet the ranch that a relationship between a stripper and a rock star would most likely lead to the front page of the National Enquirer instead of a Harlequin romance novel. By the way, if you're wondering whether Brett found out who was sleeping in his bed on that fateful night, he actually did. To pour salt in the wound, he discovered that the mystery voice came from someone that he knew very well. He was actually a member of a rival LA rock band. Even though Brett knew this guy, he has never divulged his identity to the public. I have my suspicions of who I think it is. Who do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. Now, Every Rose Has Its Thorn, that was on the second album, Open Up and Say Ah. Now, the band had found success early on with the ballad I Won't Forget You from their debut album. That went to number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100. Yeah, but that song had towering guitars and a shredding solo by C.C. DeVille. There was just a different tone with Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And the song had a back porch country vibe to it, with Brett opening the song with licks from a 12-string acoustic. And the track moved along at a slower, more methodical pace. Come out right, though I tried not to hurt you. Ricky Rocket described the cadence of the song as being in the saddle. DeVille added 2 guitar solos on Every Rose Has Its Thorn, and they were structured with a jagged edge to reinforce the wounded spirit of Brett's lead vocals. When Poison played Every Rose Has Its Thorn to their record label and their management team, get this, amazingly, the song was met with harsh disapproval. The consensus from that listening session was that Every Rose is really not Poison. There was a lot of criticism about the cowboy thing and the music and the lyrics. In short, the band's label and management told the guys that the song would be a career killer. Despite the scathing review, though, the band believed in this song. His 3 band brothers stood by Brett as the song's composer, and they vetoed the label. Every Rose was included as a cut for Open Up and Say Ah. The lead single from that album was, of course, the 80s indulgent party theme, Nothing But a Good Time. That went to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. Great start to the album. It was recently used in Cobra Kai. There's no doubt that Poison is one of Johnny Lawrence's favorite bands. And then Fallen Angel, that dropped next as the second single. That went to number 12. And when it came time to figure out the third single, Poison wanted to go with Every Rose Has Its Thorn. The label was still resisting, feeling like releasing Every Rose as a single was, at best, a risky roll of the dice. But the band saw tears in the eyes of the girls on the front row when they performed the song in concert. They just had no doubt that the tune could be a favorite with a mass audience. So Every Rose Has Its Thorn, that was the third single from Open Up and Say Ah. It was released during the ballad season in the fall of '88. Now, the first station to play Every Rose was actually a country station in, you guessed it, Dallas, Texas, where the song was born. It was a sign of the song's universal relevance. Every cowboy sings a sad song. I mean, regardless of the programming format, everybody could relate to the sentiment that they felt in Every Rose Has Its Thorn. The single garnered unheard of crossover appeal. It got airplay on rock, top 40, and country radio stations around the nation. I listened to a favorite song playing on the radio. Every Rose Has Its Thorn was in full bloom at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 consecutive weeks. It was the last number 1 of 1988 and the first number 1 in 1989. It's also Poison's biggest hit in Canada. It climbed to number 2, and it tied with their cover of Your Mama Don't Dance for the group's highest charting single in the UK. It peaked at number 13. Your mama don't Poison's Open Up and Say Ah. That was one of the biggest albums to end the 80s. It sold over 5 million copies. Fueled by Every Rose Has Its Thorn, the heartbreak anthem of the 80s, really. I had that album. I loved it. I remember the cover. They switched it out because it was controversial. Every Rose Has Its Thorn. It's been used so much in pop culture. It's been featured in the movies Tumble Down in 2005, Rocket Ages in 2012, Cop Out in 2010, 500 Days of Summer in 2009, and the Vanguard motion picture, Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo in 2005. Bret Michaels has performed Every Rose Has Its Thorn with a variety of artists away from Poison, such as country legend Loretta Lynn and Miley Cyrus. Mr. and Mrs. Sickock, the parents of Bret Michaels, they must have had a premonition when they were planning to bestow their son with the middle name of Maverick. I mean, the name certainly befits him. Bret Michaels is an independent, tenacious spirit who has overcome thorns his entire life that would have permanently debilitated most people. He's a singer-songwriter, a producer, actor, reality TV star, documentarian, author, and of course, rock icon, thriving on challenges that have turned into roses. Bret battled with type 1 diabetes since he was 6 years old. In 2010, he suffered a brain hemorrhage and diagnosed with a hole in his heart. But he just keeps on rocking, putting everything that he has into whatever project he's working on. Yes, it does. You know, the thing is, Poison, they have a really special place in my heart because it was my very first concert. I went with my friend Tosh. As you might recall if you watched his channel before, I grew up in a small town in Idaho, Blackfoot, Idaho, and there just weren't many venues that, major rock artists were going to be visiting in that area. You wanted to see a concert, you'd have to drive about 3.5, 4 hours to the biggest nearby city, which in the case of Blackfoot, Idaho, was Salt Lake City, Utah. So Tasha's parents were kind enough to take us to this concert. I mean, we were beyond excited. It was the Open Up and Say Ah tour. I was 12 years old and as pumped as a 12-year-old can be. Tasha and I were the self-proclaimed #1 metalheads of Blackfoot, Idaho. Self-proclaimed. We loved glam metal. I mean, we had every issue of Circus. We watched every episode of Headbangers Ball, never missed one, watched all the videos. We knew every band member, every lyric to every song. We were ready for this concert. Tesla opened for them, and they were amazing. When Poison came on the stage, I was in seventh heaven. I mean, we rocked out to every song. We even held up Tasha's mom's lighter for the ballads. It was just an unforgettable experience for a 12-year-old kid. Especially unforgettable was when this drunk lady fan was rocking so hard. She tripped and she rolled down the stairs. Her shorts came off halfway down. Now, she was okay. In fact, the memory serves. She got right back up, pulled up her acid wash shorts, and just started rocking out again. I gotta tell you, I miss those days. You might miss them too. When you were a kid and just discovering these bands with so much bravado and color. They were like a way of life. You lived, ate, and breathed these bands and their songs. You dressed like them. I remember trying to grow out my hair to look just like them, like Bret Michaels or Tom Kiefer from Cinderella. Glam metal was a movement. It's a movement that critics and music snobs have gleefully eviscerated throughout the years. But the truth is they really missed out on these rockers who were just looking for nothing but a good time, and they brought us all along with them. As fans, we were all included in this huge feel-good party. And you know what? They were good musicians. They could really play, and their songs were uplifting and electric and catchy. It just brought so many people together. It still does. Glam rock, it never died. These songs still thrive today as much as ever. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to these bands, starting with Poison. You guys took a shy, scrawny, nerdy, lanky preteen kid, and you made him feel 10 feet tall and absolutely invincible. Leave us a comment about Poison and this landmark power ballad of the 80s. What are your memories of this song? What are your thoughts on glam metal and the bands and the songs from that era? Let us know below. Let's have a great discussion, a love letter to this great genre. So I'm excited to tell you that we've added Lou Gramm, the original singer of Foreigner, to our Professor of Rock live lineup, that series. Make sure to get your tickets to these once-in-a-lifetime events below. If you like our content, make sure to subscribe to this channel right now. We'd love to have you as part of our community. And make sure to check out our latest on Patreon and also our merch. The whole idea is to keep the music alive, keep this a daily channel. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.